The summer of 1941 did not feel like summer at all. The sun rose early, as it always did in June, but its warmth felt thin, uncertain, almost frightened of its own light. Dawn spread across the village of Novaya Rada with a pale, hesitant glow, revealing quiet streets, shuttered windows, and people who had forgotten how to breathe easily. There were no explosions yet, no planes overhead. Not here, not this far east. But somehow the war had already arrived, silently, like a cold wind slipping under doors. Maria felt it first. She was 17, old enough to understand what adults whispered about behind the stove, but young enough to hope it might all be a mistake. Every morning she would step outside to fetch water from the well, and every morning she sensed something had changed again. The world felt smaller, birds sang less, the sky looked tired, even the air smelled different, like smoke from a fire burning somewhere too far to see but too close to ignore. She approached the well with her bucket, glancing down the dusty road leading to the town. Usually there would have been wagons by now, farmers heading to the market, children running past with sticks and wheels, a few soldiers from the garrison laughing on their way to breakfast. But this morning the road lay empty, almost abandoned, the quiet broken only by the faint rumble of a distant truck, unfamiliar, heavy, and unwelcome. Maria froze. The bucket slipped from her fingers and rolled onto the ground. She waited. The rumble faded, swallowed by the fields. Had she imagined it? Maybe. Everyone heard things lately. Engines that weren't there, whistles in the forest, the echo of boots. Fear could sound like anything. Behind her, the wooden gate creaked open. "Maria," her mother called softly. "Come inside, don't stand out there so long." Her mother's voice had changed too. It used to be firm, practical, always busy with something. Now it was quiet, strained, like someone speaking through a dream they wished to wake from. "I'm just getting water," Maria said, though she made no move toward the bucket. Her mother stepped outside, pulling her shawl tighter. "Leave it. We still have enough. Come inside, please." The well had stood for generations. Nobody worried about drawing water before sunrise. Nobody worried about anything before sunrise. But now every movement, every sound, every decision felt like it might be the wrong one. Something was coming. Everyone knew it. Inside the house, Maria's younger brother, Pavel, sat at the table staring at the radio. It had been on for 3 days straight ever since the announcement, terse, crackling, unbelievable, that the Germans had invaded. At first her father didn't believe it. Then he listened again and again. The voice on the radio trembled as it spoke, not with fear but with urgency. Danger was here. The war they had hoped to avoid had arrived. Pavel did not understand everything, but he understood enough to be afraid. "Do you think they'll come here?" he asked without looking up. Maria didn't answer, because she didn't know. Their father answered for her. "No, not yet. The army is pushing them back." But his voice had the same hollow ring Maria had begun to recognize in every adult she knew. Words meant to reassure, spoken more for themselves than for others. On the table lay an unfolded map of the western border. It had been unfolded and refolded so many times that the paper had begun to tear along the creases. Her father had marked the front lines with pencil, and each day the line crept closer, like a shadow crawling toward their home. Maria sat down beside Pavel and touched his hand. It felt cold. "Eat something," she said. He shook his head. Outside, the rumble returned. Closer this time, unmistakable. Maria stood up quickly, heart pounding. Her father reached the window first and peered out through the thin curtains. His breath caught in his throat. Trucks, 3 of them, driving fast. Maria's mother gasped, grabbing Pavel by the shoulders. "Are they?" "No," her father said, though his voice cracked. "Ours. They're ours." The trucks roared through the village square, splashing mud, carrying soldiers covered in dust and exhaustion. Their uniforms were worn, faces thin, eyes burning with something worse than fear, shock. They looked like men who had seen the ground open beneath their feet. One of them jumped down and shouted, "Is there a doctor here? Anyone? We have wounded." Maria's father didn't think. He opened the door. "What are you doing?" her mother whispered sharply. "They're ours," he repeated. "They need help." She didn't try to stop him, but her eyes filled with dread. Maria followed him outside despite her mother's protests. Something inside her needed to see, needed to know. Closer now, she saw the soldiers more clearly. Some were bandaged, some leaned on others. One lay pale and still in the truck bed, his arm hanging loosely like a broken branch. None of them looked older than 25. The commander, a lieutenant judging from the torn insignia, nodded at Maria's father. We were ambushed 2 days ago. They're advancing faster than anyone expected. We need water. Food if you have any." Maria's father hurried to bring buckets and bread. Her mother, torn between fear and compassion, followed reluctantly with a kettle of boiled potatoes. Maria handed a cup of water to a soldier sitting alone near the wheel of the truck. His hands trembled as he drank. His eyes, hollow and glassy, lifted to hers. "They're coming," he whispered. "You should leave, all of you." Maria swallowed hard. "How close are they?" The soldier hesitated. Then he looked past her, toward the west. "Too close." Another soldier, slightly older with a calm face that did not match the chaos in his eyes, approached her. "What's your name?" "Maria." "Maria," he said gently, "you and your family should pack, just in case. Nobody knows what will happen next." She nodded, though her legs felt weak. The lieutenant called out, "We move in 10 minutes. Anyone who can stand, get ready." The soldiers climbed back into the trucks, each movement stiff with fatigue. Before leaving, the calm-faced soldier turned back to Maria. "Stay safe, and stay together." Then the trucks roared to life again and disappeared down the road, leaving behind deep tracks in the mud and a silence so heavy it felt like a blanket thrown over the village. Maria stood there for several seconds, unable to breathe. Her mother came up behind her, gripping her arm. "We need to go inside," her mother whispered. "We need to think." Inside, the house felt smaller than before. The walls seemed to lean inward. The windows felt too thin to keep danger out. Pavel finally spoke, voice shaking. "Are they really coming?" Maria's father sat down slowly, rubbing his face with both hands. "I don't know," he whispered, "but we'll be ready." The radio crackled again, broadcasting fragmented reports. Towns falling, bridges destroyed, units retreating. The war was no longer somewhere far away. It was walking toward them, step by step. Maria looked at the bucket still lying outside near the well. She'd forgotten it entirely. She wondered if she would ever return to that well without fear again. The light outside dimmed as clouds gathered, turning the morning into a grey haze. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled. Or maybe it wasn't thunder at all. Nobody knew anymore. But everyone felt it. The war had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. Night fell earlier than it should have, as if the sky itself wanted to hide from what was approaching. Lamps in the village were extinguished one by one, the houses sinking into a quiet darkness broken only by the occasional barking of a restless dog. No one slept. Even the children who usually collapsed after sunset lay awake, listening for sounds no one wanted to hear. Inside Maria's home, a single candle flickered on the table. Its light cast trembling shadows across the walls, making the room feel like it was breathing. Her father had just returned from speaking with other men in the village. He closed the door quietly, but the heaviness in his shoulders told his family everything before he even spoke. "They're telling everyone to prepare," he said, sitting down slowly. "If the road becomes unsafe, we may have to leave on foot. There are rumors the front may be only a few days away." Maria's mother paled. Pavel started crying silently, not wanting to make a sound. Maria reached for his hand again, squeezing gently. "How many families are leaving?" she asked. Her father hesitated. "Some have already gone. The rest are waiting to see what tomorrow brings." Maria's mother looked around their small home, the wooden table, the shelves her father built, the embroidered cloth her grandmother made before she passed, the stove that warmed them in winter. "How do we leave everything?" she whispered. "How can we walk away from our whole life?" Her father closed his eyes. "If staying puts us in danger, we won't have a choice." Maria felt her heartbeat climb up her throat. She tried to imagine walking away from the house she was born in, from the orchard behind it, from the well where she and Pavel used to splash water at each other in the summer. She tried to imagine the village empty, the streets deserted. She couldn't. But she was learning quickly that war didn't care about what people could or couldn't imagine. Her father stood up. "We pack tonight, only essentials, clothes, food, documents." Maria and her mother began collecting what they could. Pavel gathered the family photo albums, insisting they were important. Maria's mother almost told him to leave them, but she stopped herself. Some things could not be replaced. The candle burned lower. From outside, faint voices drifted through the quiet. Neighbors speaking in hushed tones, doors opening and closing, hurried footsteps on gravel. Everyone was awake. Everyone was afraid. Maria stepped outside to get more light. She paused on the doorstep, rubbing her arms against the cold. The wind carried a distant rhythmic sound, like a heartbeat made of metal. She listened harder. Engines. Many engines. Coming from the west. She turned back inside. "Papa," she whispered, "I hear something." Her father reached the door in seconds. He listened, jaw tightening. "Stay inside," he ordered softly. But Maria didn't move. She stared down the dark road. Soon, others came out of their houses too. Men with lanterns, women clutching their children, old people leaning on walking sticks. The wind grew stronger, bringing the sound closer. Engines, heavy ones. Lights appeared on the far end of the road, dim at first, then growing brighter as the rumble intensified. Maria gripped the doorframe. "Are they—" Her father shook his head slowly. "It's too soon for the Germans. It must be our units retreating." Retreating. The word felt heavy, terrifying. Soldiers running meant danger was not far behind. The vehicles rolled into view. Trucks, motorcycles, a few armoured cars, all covered in dust and branches used as camouflage. Soldiers hung off the sides, their faces gaunt, their uniforms stained with mud and smoke. They didn't stop. They didn't wave. They barely looked at the villagers. They drove through as if the village was already lost. One truck slowed only because it had to turn. Its engine coughed, sputtered, nearly died. A soldier leaned out and called to the villagers, "Don't stay here too long, they'll reach this place soon." Just like that, the truck roared away again. A wave of panic moved through the villagers. People began shouting names, calling family members, gathering bundles, crying, asking where to go. Maria's mother clung to her shawl. "We're not ready," she whispered. Maria felt her chest tighten. "Mama, should we start walking now? Before it's too late?" Her father stared at the disappearing convoy. "We wait until dawn. Travelling in the dark is too dangerous. We'll stay together." The engines faded into the night, leaving behind a silence thick enough to choke on. Maria and her family returned inside, but none of them sat down. Nobody touched the food on the table. The air felt wrong, heavy, electric, trembling with the promise of what was coming. Near midnight, the first distant booms sounded. Maria jerked up from her seat. What was that? Her father closed his eyes. Artillery, far enough away for now. The ground trembled slightly after the third boom. Pavel covered his ears. Maria held him close, feeling his small body shake. The candle shook too, its flame bending sideways. Maria's mother whispered prayers under her breath. Hours passed. The booms continued, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, like a storm circling the village, unsure of where to strike. Maria did not sleep once. By dawn, she had packed and repacked her bag 3 times. Her father paced. Pavel sat motionless, head resting on Maria's shoulder. Their mother looked like she had aged 10 years overnight. Finally, the sky brightened. Her father took a deep breath. "We leave now." They stepped outside to see the village transformed. Some houses stood empty, their doors flung open. Some families were already on the road, carrying bundles, pushing carts, pulling children along. Chickens ran loose after escaping their coops. Smoke rose from a barn someone had abandoned in haste. Maria felt tears prick her eyes. This was their home, now dissolving before her eyes. The road out of the village stretched eastward through the open fields. The morning wind blew cold. Clouds of dust from fleeing families drifted in the air. Maria looked behind her one last time. Her house, the well, the orchard, the small garden she and her mother had tended since she was little. Everything she knew. Everything she had to leave. Her father touched her shoulder. "Don't look back too long," he said gently. "It makes walking harder." She nodded, swallowing the ache in her throat. They joined the flow of villagers heading east. Some pushed wheelbarrows, some carried sick relatives on makeshift stretchers. Some walked barefoot. Horses pulled overloaded carts. Dogs ran back and forth, confused and anxious. Babies cried. Old people stumbled. No one spoke above a whisper. Maria held Pavel's hand tightly. Her mother carried a bundle of blankets. Her father walked ahead, scanning the horizon. The sun rose higher, revealing a thin column of smoke far to the west. Maria's heart dropped. "Papa," she whispered. "Is that—" "Yes," he said quietly. "A town burning." Fear moved through the crowd like a cold wave. But they kept walking. Because now there was nothing else they could do. They had crossed the line between home and survival, and there was no turning back. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a ribbon of dirt winding through the wheat fields that were almost ready for harvest. Under different circumstances, the golden stalks would have shimmered with promise. Now they looked like a farewell, one last warm colour before everything turned cold. Maria walked between her parents, holding Pavel's hand. The The morning chill bit through her clothes, and though the sun had risen, it gave little comfort. The road was crowded with villagers, their belongings slung over shoulders or piled onto carts. Every few minutes someone stumbled and others helped them up without a word. Fear had made everyone silent allies. By midday, the line of refugees stretched so far that Maria could no longer see the beginning or the end. Occasionally, someone asked if anyone had heard news. Were the Germans as close as people said? Would the army stop them? Was it true that cities to the west had fallen overnight? Nobody had answers. Rumours floated like ashes, touching everyone and burning little holes of dread. Pavel's voice finally broke the quiet. How far do we have to go? Her father thought for a moment before answering. Until we reach the river. There's a railway line beyond it. If trains are still running, we might get farther east. And if they aren't running? Maria asked softly. He didn't reply. They walked for hours. The sky darkened as clouds gathered, heavy with rain. The wind carried distant echoes. Maybe thunder, maybe something else. Every sound seemed suspicious now. As they approached a fork in the road, they saw a man standing on a crate, waving his arms and shouting. Refugees slowed, confusion spreading. What's happening? Maria whispered. A neighbour, an older woman with a scarf tied tightly around her head, answered quietly. He says the bridge ahead was destroyed yesterday. The river can't be crossed from that side. Maria felt her stomach twist. Then where do we go? Her father stepped closer to hear better. The shouting man pointed east, then southeast, describing alternate paths. None sounded certain. None sounded safe. Then, unexpectedly, something like hope appeared. A small military truck rolled toward the crowd, moving slowly. It wasn't part of a retreat, only a single truck with 2 soldiers inside. People instinctively stepped aside, though many reached out asking questions, begging for news. The truck stopped near the crate. One soldier climbed out. He looked exhausted, his uniform stained with mud, but he spoke loudly, clearly, almost reassuringly. Listen to me. The enemy is still many kilometers away. They are moving fast, but you have time. Follow the southern path, cross the river near the old orchard. There is still a footbridge there. It's narrow, but intact. A wave of relief rippled through the villagers, though it wasn't stable relief, more like a rope thrown to a drowning crowd, something to hold on to. Maria felt her breath loosen slightly. Her father nodded. We'll follow that road. The soldier continued. Move steadily, stay together, and don't panic. Fear spreads faster than armies. Maria would remember that sentence for the rest of her life. The truck moved on, disappearing into the dust. The villagers reorganized themselves and turned toward the southern road. Maria walked beside her mother now. Pavel shuffled tiredly beside them. The clouds grew heavier, casting a dim grey over the fields. The first drops of rain fell, gentle at first, then steady, turning the dirt road into soft mud. People trudged forward, boots sinking, clothes soaking through. Babies cried, old men coughed, and the sound of shuffling feet blended with the steady patter of rain. After an hour, the rain became a downpour. Maria pulled her shawl over her head, trying not to slip. Her mother wrapped an arm around Pavel, shielding him from the worst of the storm. Her father stopped occasionally, making sure they didn't fall behind. By late afternoon, the rain eased. The sky remained grey, but the cold eased slightly. Maria wiped her face, her clothes clinging to her skin. Her shoes felt like wet stones. Then she saw it, a thin line of trees rising on the horizon, marking the riverbank. We're close, she said, her voice almost breaking with relief. But as they approached, the road narrowed. The grass grew taller. The trees rustled with a wind that seemed sharper here, and the river, when it appeared, was swollen from the rain, dark and fast. Dozens of refugees gathered along the bank, all searching for the footbridge. Where is it? Someone asked. They said it was intact. Farther down, another replied. Maria's father guided them along the river until finally, between 2 large trees, they saw it. A wooden footbridge spanning the rushing water. It didn't look strong, but it stood. People crossed one by one. The boards creaked under the weight, the handrails swayed, but it held. Maria's father turned to them. I'll go first. Then you follow, one at a time. He stepped onto the bridge, moving carefully. Maria held her breath until he reached the other side. Then he signalled. Mama, you go next, Pavel said, surprising them. His voice trembled, but he was trying to be brave. His mother hugged him tightly before stepping onto the bridge. She crossed slowly, gripping the rail with white knuckles, but she too reached the other side safely. Now it was Maria's turn. Her legs shook as she stepped forward. The wooden planks were slick under her shoes. The water roared beneath her like a warning. She moved slowly, not daring to breathe too deeply. Halfway across, a sudden gust of wind pushed her sideways, and the bridge lurched. She froze. "Maria!" her father shouted. "Don't stop! Come to me!" Her heart pounded, but she forced her legs to move. One step, another, and another. When she finally reached the far side, her father pulled her close. She didn't realize she'd been crying until she felt the warmth of his coat against her cheek. Now only Pavel was left. "Come on, little one," their mother called gently. Pavel stepped onto the bridge. He walked quickly, trying not to look down. Maria held her breath again. He was halfway across when a loud crack echoed through the air. Someone screamed. One of the boards had snapped under the pressure of the previous person. The bridge swayed violently. "Pavel!" Maria shouted. He froze, eyes wide in terror. Her father moved toward the edge of the bridge. "Listen to me, son. Don't move suddenly. Take small steps, slow and steady. Look at me, not at the river." Pavel nodded stiffly and took a tiny step forward. Then another. And another. Maria didn't realize she'd clenched her fists until her nails dug into her palms. Her mother was whispering prayers again. Finally, Pavel reached them. Maria grabbed him the moment he stepped off the bridge, holding him so tightly he squeaked. As they walked away from the river, the bridge gave a long, splintering groan. Moments later, with a sound like a falling tree, it collapsed into the rushing water. Everyone stopped and stared. If they had been a few minutes later, Maria shivered. Her father placed his hands on her shoulders. "We made it," he said quietly. "We're safe for today. Today. Not forever. Not even for long. But today mattered." They walked across the field toward the distant tree line, where the army was rumoured to be regrouping. Smoke drifted on the horizon. The sound of artillery rolled faintly in the distance. The world behind them was burning. The world ahead was uncertain. But they were together. As night approached, Maria realized something. Fear had followed them every step of the way, but so had courage. Not the loud courage of heroes and stories, the quiet courage of ordinary people who kept moving, even when everything inside them wanted to stop. And in that moment, for the first time since the war began, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they would survive.